So I have a bone to pick with the internet. There's so much content that exists by females for females on sleep training your child, and almost none exists by dads for dads on sleep training your child. And guess what? Dad's gotta sleep train too. Assalamu alaikum guys, welcome to another video. We're on my channel, Faze. Assalamu alaikum guys, welcome to another video on this channel where we speak about fatherhood, productivity, and Assalamu alaikum guys, welcome to another video on this channel where we speak about fatherhood and productivity for the Muslim mind. Ooh, that's a good one. Okay, so sleep training your child is something new to me. I thought we had done it. I thought we were fine because basically, alhamdulillah, Zakariya has always been so good at sleeping. But I didn't realize, so basically what we had been doing is we would always rock Zakariya to sleep. I actually had a conversation with a brother recently, and he was like, oh, how's your kid sleeping? And I was like, yeah, fine, alhamdulillah. And he was like, wow man, like, you know, can you recommend me any books on it and stuff? And I was like, books? He just sleeps. Little did I know that because we were rocking him to sleep every time, even for his nap, that he got so used to it. So he actually wasn't good at sleeping at all because he can't put himself to sleep. That was the big problem. And we realized it was a big problem. And we realized that we have to transition Zakariya now from sleeping only when being rocked to sleep to actually just sleeping alone in his cot by himself in his own room. So there's two main methods basically from my knowledge, and basically we had come to terms with the fact that there's the cry out method, which is where you basically just let your child cry and then eventually they fall asleep, and then it seems to be this other method where like you leave the room and after about 5 minutes or 2 minutes you go in, you know, calm them down, rub their hair, and then you leave the room again and they cry, then you go in after 10 minutes, you let them cry for 20 minutes and then you go in. So you're extending the amount of time that you're going in, and then eventually they realize, okay, look, my parents are just outside, everything's fine, I'm too tired of crying, I'll go to sleep. That's method 2. My wife wanted to go with the second method because she's a sensitive mother who loves her child. Me, I wanted to go with the cry out method. I thought, let's just leave him in there and let him sleep. Experts are saying that it's safe. Let's just do it, man. So here's our story of sleep training our 6-month-old son. Day one, we started on a weekend because we figured out that on the weekends we're both at home, I'm not at work, and therefore we can both manage this together. So Friday night, we started with the second plan because that seemed like the most humane one. We went and put Zakariya in his cot. He's like, whoa, what are you doing to me? You normally rock me to sleep. And then we walked out and he cried and cried and cried. And so after a few minutes, we went in and we, you know, gave him some reassurance. In Punjabi, you say the word tasalli, which is like reassurance. So you give him some tasalli, you know, you just rub his head and stuff. And he'd be okay, he'd like be calm. And then as soon as we stop and walk out, he's crying again. So after a few attempts of this is all in the same day, bear in mind, this is day one. After a few attempts of that, I decided, you know what, we need to try the cry out method because he's just realizing that every time I cry, they'll come in, and so I am just going to cry and they'll come in. Obviously, I don't know if that's what he's thinking because I have no idea what he's thinking. He's a baby, he can't communicate to us. P.S. I've also heard a lot of people benefit from that method where you go in and you give them reassurance, so I'm not knocking it. But I just said, you know what, let's just go in, let's just jump in the deep end. And so we did the cry out method. He cried for so we put him to bed at 7 p.m, his normal bedtime, and he cried for about 40 minutes. And it was bad. And it was painful, it was really difficult. And we have a monitor, and I'll link the monitor in the bio that we have. It's really, really good. You have the monitor. We purposely wanted the monitor that doesn't connect to your phone. It means we have to have our phones near us. So we decided to go for the one that we have the actual physical monitor. And we were watching him and he was screaming and crying and he was getting up on his hands and knees. After about 10-15 minutes, my wife, she couldn't hack it, bless her. She felt like she was torturing him. And so I wasn't letting her go in the room. And so she actually left and went to the garden so she couldn't hear him because she was so emotional during this process. I basically just closed his door and I just did the cry out method. And eventually, after about 40-45 minutes, Zakariya fell asleep. And that was the hardest day. And the first day, you hear people say that the first day is always the hardest day, and it is, and it gets easier. It really does. And it gets easier within days. You know, you think to yourself, like, how long does this last? The good thing is it really doesn't last that long. If you're watching this now and you're about to start sleep training tonight, I promise you this time next week, you're going to be like, oh, so happy that your baby sleeps by him or herself. So that was day one. What I didn't realize is that you don't just sleep train the baby for nighttime, he now has to sleep even his naps. So he has like 4 naps during the day. Even in his naps, he has to do it. That was tough. But by day 2, already I was seeing an improvement. He was napping a bit easier. We were just like waiting for him to be a bit more tired. So Zakariya shows he's tired by like rubbing his eyes and stuff like that. And so we were kind of waiting for some more signals like that, rather than just clocking the time and being like, oh, it's his nap time. I think on the 3rd day he like relapsed, and his nighttime, he had like a really bad night, as in getting himself to sleep on the 3rd night. Bear in mind that once he's asleep, he slept through the night, but it was just about getting him to sleep. There were times on day 2, on day 3, where it would just be too much, and we would go in after maybe 10-15 minutes and just like give him some reassurance and then walk back out. So I'm not saying that we just let him cry, because that is really difficult, but for the most part we use the cry out method. So you're probably wondering, at what point did it get like noticeably easier? For us, it was day 4. I read up that anywhere between day 3 and 7, I think, is when you start seeing like it gets substantially easier. On day, now I'm thinking it was day 5. On day 4 or 5, I'm pretty sure it was day 4, I noticed a real big difference. And that difference was that I went to put Zakariya for his nighttime sleep, and he just went to sleep. Alhamdulillah. And it was amazing. I was really, really happy, because that day was the day that his grandparents had come round, so my wife's parents, and they obviously, it's their first grandchild, they love him to bits. They refused to let him cry for a second. So I was really nervous, and I said to them, I said, look, I'm putting Zakariya to sleep now, and you will hear him cry maybe for 40 minutes straight, like he has the last few nights, but I really need you to work with me here and don't go get him. They would have gone to get him if you cried, because that's their grandson, you know, and they're sensitive to him, and that's understandable. And I was nervous about that, because you hear all these stories that if you go and pick them up once, you ruin all of the days of training that you've done. So I was really nervous about that, but alhamdulillah, that was the day that he slept instantly. So that was, I think, day 4. Pretty much after the first week, sometimes he might cry, but it's not like the type of cry where it's like, oh, it's just like moany, and it's like 5 minutes, 7 minutes, and so that's manageable. I've heard a few recommendations so any tips for you dads listening is, if your child is ill, like he's got cold or something, don't start sleep training, because it's difficult. Make sure your child is healthy. He's normally sleeping well when you're doing like the rocking and stuff anyway, so it's like a nice time to do it. Another tip I heard that's really good is like having a bit of a nighttime routine. We don't have a massive routine, but for me, I go into his room with him, and I shut the blinds with him, so he watches me shut the blinds while he's with me and stuff like that. He sleeps really well with white noise as well, so we transitioned him by, we didn't rock him anymore, but we did use white noise. And so the plan was, step 1, stop him from being rocked, and then step 2, eventually take the white noise away as well. There's going to be a lot of tears from your child, from your wife, maybe even from you, but be brave, and it's worth it, inshallah. Alright guys, this video is way longer than I wanted it to be, but I'll see you guys soon, inshallah. Thank you so much for watching, and hit subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and my other content as well, which is based around productivity for the Muslim mind. Alright guys, see you soon, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.